Welcome back to Scoundrels, Inc., another Star Wars podcast. I am Frank Janice, along with Kevin Smets and Brandon Hanna. We're here to talk about AHSOKA Part 3, Time to Fly. And boy, did time fly with this episode, because it was quick. Anyways, guys, how you guys doing?
Doing better than the New Republic, that's for sure.
Kevin, how's Coruscant over there?
Coruscant's good. It got Monument Plaza back there, right there, and people
Right
are
there.
having their ice pops.
Yeah.
Ice pops and going on a leisurely stroll. It's good here. I don't even know if you could tell because, I mean, the screen arrangement's probably like this. Hello! Is it? Like, this will be weird, like, to your thing.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Hello, here I am.
Yeah, I'm just going to use your arms.
It's like
instead.
ESPN. That's what Frank says.
Yeah, I'm just going to use your
have
arms.
it all horizontal like this. Look at. Well, it won't be horizontal. I'll still be like this, but. Anyways, I'm doing great. Let's talk some Star Wars.
Yeah, let's talk some Star Wars. And before we get into everything else, though, actually, I just kind of wanted to start off right off the top with some overall thoughts. Brandon, right before we went to air, you said you got some heated stuff, but you did kind of narrow that point of criticism down. But what are your overall thoughts of this episode?
Well, I mean, I really like the episode. I feel like there's been like a lot of like really great composers that have taken over for John Williams since like Star Wars went to Disney. But I mean, Kevin Kiner is just like, I feel like he's just on another level. I feel like you know, like the direction and the editing and like the story and characters are all great, but like I feel like the score just ties it all together in like a way where I'm like, I feel like I'm watching original trilogy stuff with just like different characters in like the best way. I don't know. So that was definitely a highlight for me. And yeah, the New Republic, they're just a bunch of complacent idiots. They're like, oh my God. They're like, oh, the Imperial Loyalists stole a super Star Destroyer hyperdrive? Bah, I'm not worried about it. We need to send more biscuits to Batu. I'm like, come on, guys. Jesus.
Kevin, first overall thoughts of this episode.
Overall, I talked about this earlier today on the Jedi Way. I thought what was interesting was that they were able to cram a lot into the 30 minutes. Like, everybody was like, if you notice, there was a shift of like people upset about the runtime, and then once they saw the episode, they liked the episode. So that's something that Roka pointed out, and I thought that was interesting. And the only negative I was thinking is when it's so short, I know it, like it's almost over, and I'll keep checking the runtime. Do you guys ever do that? That means you're having a good time. Yeah. But like I'll keep pressing it to be like, oh, okay, 11 minutes left, 2 minutes of trailer, so actually, or 2 minutes of credits. It's actually only 9 minutes left, you know. So, but yeah, overall, I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting. It was like slow ramp up, like you start nice and slow with the great training sequence with samurai homage. Then you get into the epic, you know, verbal duel with Hera and Kaz. Father from the Resistance, and then they ramp up and are like, all right, we're going to reward your patience with sick, you know, space fight.
Man.
Then, you know, over a planet fight through flying space whales. Who would have ever thought you'd say that sentence in Star Wars?
Right.
Overall, and they did that all, and it was fine. I didn't feel like it was too long. I didn't feel like, I mean, it was short, like it was done, and I was like, oh, but like, you know what? I got shit to do. So for me, I was like, good. I'm solid. I'm satisfied. And next week it's going to be Peter Ramsey directs it, and I believe I have it written down here.
Did it say like 40?
I think 42 minutes.
42, yeah. So it'll be like 38.
So yeah, you'll get
39.
a little extra time next week. And I believe the Filoni episode 5, which is when all that shit's going down. Why would Filoni decide I want to go back to episode 5? Because he's going to have everything in there. Hayden, Clone Wars flashbacks. Vader, fucking Kylo Ren, Snoke, everybody's going to be in there. That'll be a supersized episode, I bet.
Yeah, that'll be a 2-hour episode for sure, right? That's the 2-hour. That's the Filoni movie. That's the Filoni movie's episode 5.
Filoni movie, yeah.
Hey, I'm excited for Ramsey. I think he had one of the best episodes of Mandalorian season 3.
Oh yeah.
And you know, when I talked to him on the red carpet.
Yeah.
You know, he did talk about directing Ahsoka and how different it is from the Mandalorian, which I feel like means we're going to get a lot of lightsabers.
Awesome, because I think we're building to that based on how this episode ended. But I will say, I agree with you, Brandon, about the pirate episode he directed in Mando season 3. It was probably my favorite episode of the season, or it's number 2, but I'm really looking forward to what he does next week for sure. My overall thoughts, though, on this episode was I absolutely loved this episode because it like you said, Kevin, it did a lot in a short amount of time. And by the time this episode was over, I was like, man, that was really, really fun, and I want more. And it's not in reference to right, but I know I shouldn't. But it's not in reference to the runtime. But it's not in reference to the runtime of the episode. I just want more of the story. And I think when a show can kind of leave off on a note like that, I think that means it's doing good things, at least for me, in terms of my appreciation for the show. But before we really get into the meat of the episode and really breaking down what went on in the episode, I would like to ask everyone to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave a like and a comment if you so please. Also, you can follow us on our socials, the app formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Brandon's favorite platform, Threads.
I got a thread that's been up there for a couple days. No bites. So help me out.
How is that going over there? Is it like everybody using it, or is everybody still
it's pandemonium over there. It's crazy, Kevin. You wouldn't understand. You're not on there.
Wouldn't get it.
Is it like Reno? Is it like embarrassing? Is it bad?
Oh, I don't know if I'd go to Reno. It's like Atlantic City.
Got it. Yeah,
but we also have a podcast feed, so please subscribe to that on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And a couple weeks ago, I said this on the show, but we were fortunate enough to be asked to join a network started up by a good friend of ours, Brad Gilmore. He started his own media company, and with that is a podcast network, and Gilmore Media. And he asked if Scoundrels Inc. would go over there and be a part of his building network, and we all were absolutely took him up on the offer and could not be more thrilled for what he's starting over there. And,
they had to back the money truck up for us.
Yeah, they really did. The Brinks truck was in.
We are rich now, my guys. Rich.
No, but we're really thrilled to be a part of this, a small part of his journey that he's building over there. And you know what? If you left us like a review, it'd make us look good towards Brad. Probably, get us, make us feel a little better. But that's all we got for that front. And as always, every week, as we've been doing these episodes since the strikes have been going, most notably SAG-AFTRA going on strike alongside WGA, we just like to reiterate our support for the strike, and what they're fighting for is basically just their fair share and to be compensated fairly and treated fairly, and usually give out kind of like a spot where you can get some more information. And this past week, literally I think after last week's episode aired on last Friday, Dan Merle, who we've mentioned on the show before, covering the strike, he's kind of like my go-to source because he does a really great job of breaking down the negotiations and kind of giving his own commentary on what he thinks is happening. And he did a great breakdown of the WGA rejected proposal from the AMPTP, and he kind of breaks down all the finer points of the negotiations and really makes it a digestible piece of content. So if you want to know more, I suggest you watch Dan Merle's video. You may already have, because it gets plenty of views because he's so good at what he does over there. All right, so now let's move on to part 3. They call them parts, not chapters. They call them parts. So it's part 3, Time to Fly. And we start off with Sabine training with Hu Yang and Ahsoka. Kevin, what did you think about kind of like how Hu Yang was like doing this, kind of doing like a baseline test to see where her skills are at, and then Ahsoka comes in and then they do the old blaster shield thing. What was your take on this scene?
Filoni is a fan of George Lucas, and you feel it in that scene. I love the General Grievous, multiple arms fighting. And it hit me too when I was watching it that like this droid is so many thousands of years old.
25.
Every Jedi we've come to know, Anakin, Qui-Gon, Dooku, whoever, Barriss, like they all fought, or at least probably sparred with this droid,
probably
right?
Even Revan, dude.
That,
probably even Revan.
Dude, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I mean, he is such the custodian of all of that. Yeah, you're right. the custodian. Man, now I'm trying to fit him in my.
There you go.
I'm gonna add him. Just use Doctor Who dialogue. But yeah, it really like. And now you get to see this this person, which it's not necessarily adept at the Force, testing her mettle with it. So I said last week that I was always a fan of the Force being more like something you're born into or whatever. But I changed my mind when someone on TikTok, I think, showed the clip of George Lucas himself saying the Force isn't everyone. It's just some people can harness it, while others they are not trained to. He's like literally, I can't move this table because I wasn't trained from birth to do it, which I thought was really powerful. I think it's crazy. I think it's a bigger deal than people are really making it out to be. It's such a change of the norm of like, especially with the conversation that they talk about it too. Like now the Force resides in everyone, even you. Like this is a huge radical departure from what I think we all thought, right? And it's cool that it's being embraced. Thank God that, because I'll get to this later where I was just really worried about something else that people would react negatively about, but they didn't, thankfully. But like, thank God that people are reacting positively to this too. Like people are having open minds. I think they're really enjoying the show. So far it's been really getting good, reviews and stuff like that. So, but I thought it was great. I thought the samurai nods to the samurai is great. I love samurai culture and samurai movies when I was growing up. So to see that and like to see the form and see the wooden stick, there's a name for it.
Boken. Boken sabers.
Boken sabers. Yeah, to see that is just so cool, and just the sound design with Ahsoka kind of popping around the room and stuff like that. I like it, and I like that it's not coming easy for her, for Sabine, and we'll jump ahead later, but she's not doing too well in the dogfight either, and that's relatable. You know what I mean? Like we're not all gonna hop in and be perfect at things. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna go in and play. If I played skee ball every day since I was 2 years old,
right,
I'd probably kick all your guys' ass at skee ball, right? But I don't play that much skee ball, right? I take my daughter to Chuck E. Cheese. Maybe I play like one round and I embarrass myself in front of my daughter, and then she's disappointed in me as a parent.
You want to talk about something, Kev? You all right over there?
No, I'm okay. I'd rather not talk about it. But yeah, no, it was great. I just thought the pacing was great, and I think, I still feel. I think it was one of you guys that had mentioned that Ahsoka just feels a step like melancholy and like she's seen some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. And I think that it's got to be not easy to take on a Padawan that literally doesn't basically have the
right.
Force,
Yeah.
It'd be like asking me to start, playing, I don't know, tennis. I played tennis once, I think. So,
sure.
Yeah. All in all, great first start to the episode, especially when you view it as a whole. Like it's 3-act structure, right? And you're gonna have the second act with Hera and all of that, and then you have the third act where you're kind of rewarded for your patience for all these other ones. And I don't mean rewarded like you have to suffer through this. I thought the training sequence was probably my favorite part of the episode.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, for some people that are just waiting for that action.
Yeah, I think what I really liked about this whole I love the whole sequence on the ship, from Hu Yang to Ahsoka, the conversation thereafter about the Force, and I think, to your point, Kevin, I think a lot of people are, to me, it's more of like duh. Like, I've heard this stuff before. I've seen it happen before. We kind of talked about it a little bit last week with, with like Luke and Leia and coming, in their late teens or even 20s, starting to train with the Force. I think what's interesting is, people are, what's important or makes it easier for people to accept it is that the fact that it's coming from a Filoni written story who everyone knows is, the apprentice of George Lucas. So it's not that far from the tree to hear this type of school of thought on the Force. People really listen to it as gospel. I mean, it's the closest thing we have to George Lucas, really, in terms of the media that's being put out these days. I think it's a really interesting time to delve into this side of everyone has the Force. It just depends on, I mean, in the conversation, Ahsoka says, talent is a factor. And when she says talent, I take that to mean midichlorians, if you don't have a count of 10,000 midichlorian, or if you do, you'd be really, it's a lot easier to train with the Force. But if you have a count of 1,000, it's going to take you 10 times as many hours to accomplish something that's, than another person who's easily attuned to the Force or as as talented. So I like how they're setting that up, because I've seen a lot of examples. It's like, if I spent 10,000 hours shooting a basketball into a hoop, I'll get pretty good. But if someone, who's just naturally gifted at playing basketball, they might take them, 1,000 hours to do what I could do in 10,000 hours, So yeah. I like how they're setting that up and explaining it to the audience, because there are some people out there who are very closed-minded and will say, no, you have to have, the midichlorians, or you have to be born into it, or what have you. So I do like the approach that Dave is taking with the Force, and I especially love the scene or the little moment where Sabine is trying to move the cup, and it's like, I didn't think it was ever going to move, which was probably the point, but the fact that she's trying to open up to it is fascinating to watch and kind of watch this journey. Something that Ahsoka said to Sabine during the training was that, what was it? Anger and frustration are quick to give power, but they also unbalance you. And that's kind of like Sabine tapping into her Mandalorian ways. And so I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know if they'll really tackle this, but wrestling her Mandalorian upbringing in ways and countering that with more of a Jedi approach, and how that can open her up more to the Force. Because I feel like a Mandalorian way of living would pretty much shut you off from, tapping into the Force, whereas it feels like she might have to balance both of those parts of her life now, I guess, in a way. Kevin, you talked about the samurai stuff, the Zatoichi, when she has the blast shield on, and I looked this up, and it's actually derives from the word Zatoichi, and it's a samurai series called the Blind Swordsman, and so it makes sense with the blast shield, and they call it cool. Zatoichi. Yeah, so I thought, that's Dave Filoni going back into his bag of love for samurais and stuff like that. Yeah, and I think I'm really, really glad that Ahsoka is like the one to take on someone who's not even closely adept to the Force to try and train her. But she does say, she doesn't need Sabine to be a Jedi. She just needs her to be herself, which I think also raises this interesting notion that really definitely is an Ahsoka thing, is don't be so quick to put the Jedi on a pedestal. Don't think of them as this thing that you can't touch, because you don't have, because you weren't trained by the Jedi Order. So I think there's like an interesting thought that's happening with that type of line, especially coming from Ahsoka, because she walked away from the Jedi. And I think it's more or less saying, Sabine, you don't have to live up to what the Jedi were in the past. I'm not asking you to be that. I'm just asking you to be yourself and opening yourself up to the Force. And if that brings you closer to the way of the Jedi, then so be it. But she's not asking Sabine to become something that may not necessarily, jive with who Sabine is. And so I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this early part of the episode that I really, really love. Brandon, I've been talking for a little while. What are your thoughts here, man?
Yeah, I think you guys pretty.
Guys, the newest episode just dropped, episode 4, so we should get to that.
I don't think that's true. But no, I think you guys nailed a lot of it. I did appreciate during the training sequence how Sabine started off not being able to defend herself from Ahsoka at all, but then as the scene progressed, she started able to sense her and predict her attacks a little bit better, kind of hinting at the fact that she is tapping into the Force a little bit. She just maybe isn't aware of it fully yet. And then when she's puts the blast shield down, she's like, I can't see in this thing. I'm like, your eyes deceive you, don't trust them.
There you go.
Immediately wanted to.
She even says, "How am I supposed to fight?" Which is literally Luke's line. How am I supposed to fight? You're not fighting. You're deflecting blood. Used to love that line in the OT.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and then the talent is a factor. The Force flows through all of us. Ahsoka says all these things. I think they handled it really well.
Yeah, I think that's the key part of all of this, is that how they handle it and put it out to the audience, and that makes it a lot more easily understandable of how this could be a thing. One thing that within the ship still, Hu Yang is talking to Ahsoka about how is Sabine doing and this, that, and the other. But he also says, "You do come from a long line of non-traditional Jedi." I just think that's just a great line for Star Wars, diehards to know that you're talking about Qui-Gon, Dooku, Anakin, Obi-Wan more or less, because he's a little more on the up and up. He's more straight arrow, of all of them, but nonetheless, all the Jedi that she's been influenced by in her life, and now she's taken on Sabine, so it makes perfect sense that Ahsoka would do this.
Obi-Wan lost his girlfriend, his best friend, his brother. He had gotten his family when he was taken.
Yeah.
And lost all of his people that he lived on a temple with for the last 30, 40 years or whatever. Dude still didn't ever turn bad. Guy's legit.
Yeah, he's as good as they come.
Him and Yoda. This is from Ellis's stand-up. He used to talk about how impressive it is for Yoda to be working at the same place for
for hundreds of years,
for almost 800 years, and never had a single sexual harassment. Not a single secretary found him offensive.
Right. Man.
Shout out to Mark Ellis.
Obi-Wan got a little edgy at the end when he's a tired old ghost, and he's just like, dude, listen, straight up, if you don't kill your father, you're a bitch.
It's true. And I guess we've already lost, trying to just gaslighting Luke, just all right.
Yeah, talk about
aggressive tripping him.
Then the Emperor has already won.
Yeah.
You were our only hope.
I can't kill my father. Well, then I guess we lose.
Right. Actually, one other little thing I loved about this opening part was how much time we were just spending in hyperspace, because we don't really ever do that. We did it once, I think, really, in A New Hope, when Luke is actually, basically what happened here on the ship as well, with the blast shield and Obi-Wan kind of guiding Luke. And we don't really spend a whole lot of time just traveling through hyperspace a lot of the time in Star Wars stories. And so I kind of picked up on it. I was like, man, that's actually pretty cool. All right, any other thoughts on this opening act with Sabine and Ahsoka?
Well, now I'm just thinking about, in hyperspace, are they really traveling at the speed of light? Because how small is this galaxy? This will take them a while, dude.
Hey, I don't know. I mean, don't you mean how big is the galaxy?
Because they go somewhere in hours that should probably take them hundreds of years if it's the size of our galaxy. You know what I mean? I don't know. Something's up.
I don't know. It's Star Wars physics, man. I don't try to understand it. Let's move on to Hera and the Senate committee back with the New Republic fleet. Yeah. But I tell you what, though, the establishing shot of the fleet is pretty sick. It's like Return of the Jedi. I don't know if you got those vibes, Kevin.
I was going to say
it was sick, and then I'm like...
Or KOTOR Episode 3, we have a scene that we homaged Return of the Jedi, so...
Cool.
We were kind of there first.
It was pretty sick, but then
you were there first, second. Yeah.
20 or 30 years from now, that thing's just going to get blown up by Starkiller base.
Oh, gosh. I don't want to think about it.
Oh, I got some morbid thoughts later when we get to this character, too.
Oh, boy.
You can't avoid some of these morbid thoughts. Yeah.
Brandon, you're going to say more on the fleet here?
Yeah, well, yeah. I immediately think of Hux, going, their precious fleet. It's they're so high on this fleet and they do nothing with it. That fleet went to the freaking planet. I already forgot the name of it. But if the fleet if they got the thumbs up, that would have been it. Shin Hati would have been Shin gone.
Oh, yeah. Shin gone, yeah.
Shin gone, Jin.
Shin gone, Jin. Shin gone, Jin, yeah.
But yeah, the New Republic, they're trash. They're stupid. Literally, Imperial, there's we have a bunch of former imperialists in the New Republic, and then Hera's ones that shout out "Long live the Empire" and then shoot at me. I don't think so.
Right. That's not the type of loyalty we're looking for. I think. I'm Hera. Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Actually, I had some little minor quibbles with her portrayal as Hera, but I really thought this was a great job of Hera being Hera, and she really was not having it with the
No.
Senate committee.
She had
Kevin,
the
would you?
sickest burn. when
Yeah.
she was
Oh.
like, "Did you fight in the war? No.
Oof.
Oh, were you sitting back to see which side would win before?"
And he had
Such a
no
great
response.
Yeah, that was like, damn, bro. And they still voted no after that sick burn. I would have been like, dude, she had you, bro. We're sending that fleet. She got you. You want some ice, dude?
Heck,
Oh yeah.
and that senator, he has a history. Well, not a history. I guess it would be a forward history because, like, his son, he never wants his son to be involved in the resistance during Star Wars Resistance. So that is Kazuto's dad, by the way, in case people didn't know that.
Hamada Ziono.
Yes. And in that show, which I watched, I wasn't as in love with it, but I still watched it. He was also very hesitant to have his son. I mean, obviously, you're protective of your children.
He called the resistance extremists when he was talking to Kaz, and I was like, oh,
and
damn.
So I don't think the guy ever put a foot forward in wanting to take a stand or anything like that. So I like that. I like that they were able to have that synergy between animated and it's good because you don't need to know anything about Resistance, but if you do know, it's kind of a nice little bonus, right?
Totally,
and that's kind of rewarding for people that have watched that show. But yeah, Hera like calling him out and just being like, yeah, and did you fight? And Hera too, like this is a Hera that is frustrated. This is a Hera that if you remember her in Rebels, she's a lot more of a calm, cool, and collected. And now she's kind of losing her cool a little bit. And I think all of us would, because she's literally seen history repeat itself. Like, she's watching a galaxy stand idly by as they could let a new empire.
She's trying not to be in a third galactic war. She was through the Clone Wars, the rebellion, and now she's trying to prevent another one,
Yeah, and she's going to have to go through this again. So I understand her frustration. And she's seen a lot of shit. She fought in the wars, so we never got to see it, but we hear her in the Rogue One calling for her name and stuff like that. It's kind of cool that we never see her. I mean, we just hear whispers of it. Maybe we'll get a novel or something about it at another time. But yeah, I mean, this is someone that has gone through a lot and is probably frustrated because she has a lot more to think of too. She has her son.
Right.
Which is a good segue. You like that segue, fellas?
If you were going to do it,
What do
I
you guys
was.
think about seeing JACEN in live action?
I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun introduction for JACEN. I really liked how, actually, to start, before we even see him, Mon Mothma, or Chancellor Mon Mothma, says, oh, is JACEN around? And Hera's like, yeah, he's around here somewhere. And she's like, oh, probably, causing trouble with Chopper. And I lost it when she said Chopper. I was like, oh my God, Mon Mothma was saying Chopper. I don't know why. It just sounded funny to me, but it's great. Anyway, seeing JACEN, running around with Chopper makes 100% sense. Hey, he has green hair. What do you know? You just had to sit back and watch the show, and instead of getting all up in arms from a Lego leak about not having green hair, he has green hair here.
Where's his lecus, dude?
I mean, look, he's half human as well. So
tentacles, where's that?
I don't. Did you say his genitals?
No, I said tentacles, not genitals. Oh mercy!
Oh man. Okay, all right.
But where are those two? You don't know. Where are they on a Twilight?
I don't know. I don't know. Like,
do you know? I don't.
He got more of the Force genes. I don't know than the Twi'lek genes. I don't know. Yeah, Brandon, we see JACEN.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Save us from.
Yeah,
this.
I don't know. It was cool.
Yeah.
They mentioned wanting to be a Jedi. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm gonna go train with Luke.
What if she? Okay, do you want to get into this then, Kevin? Do you want to?
That's my morbid thought.
Yeah.
So you know me, no Star Wars character can ever have a happily ever after, and I just wonder the second you ever see any character in these movies, it's like, okay, well, where are they in the sequel trilogy now, right? Like, if he would be probably around during Kylo Ren's insurrection, probably in his mid-20s, I'm guessing. If I'm trying to think about the timeline. So, was he a Jedi Knight helping out Luke, and he's dead?
Can I just interrupt you real quick? Because we got something in the Discord from Saul, our good buddy Saul. He says, and he's referring to your comment you left in our Discord, and he says, JACEN must only be referred to as Soylent Green here and on air from now on. Soylent
I guess
Green.
No one will understand that until we get to the Q&A at the end.
But you got we have to call him Soylent Green from now on. I'm just
Soylent
saying.
Green. So yeah, Soylent Green. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're thinking, okay, well, then maybe he doesn't train with Luke. And then you hope that they find Ezra, whether he's Marrok, and we can get to that later, or if he's uncovered later and he's saved. Ezra could train him, because that would be so full circle, because like Kanan trained Ezra and Ezra trains him.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't have Ezra skip out on another major war. And if he's not in the sequel trilogy war, then where is he? It's like, oh, guys, I'm going to ride the purrgil and take off. You guys go handle that war yourself. It's like that when you get in college or in high school and there's a big brawl and you're looking for your buddies to like back you up, and one of them is like, oh, don't worry, I'll be right there. And then they just turn around and run off. So, I mean, I don't call Ezra a wimp or anything like that, but we can't have Ezra miss out on another war, which makes me sad. This is the double sadness, that there's no way Ezra can be alive during the sequel trilogy, I don't think, unless you have another, right? And then JACEN, like, where's JACEN? Is he one of the Knights of Ren? Is he
I have a theory.
Dead? Is he alive? Like, where is he?
I have a theory. I mean, the Knights of Ren thing would be wild. That would be really wild, actually, if you become a Knights of Ren. But
which one, then? So that means he's in Rise of Skywalker?
I guess. I don't know. But that's not part of my theory. My theory is, so they mention migration patterns for the purrgil in this episode. And, I think what that is setting up is that these purrgil, or a pod of purrgil, or whatever, a herd of purrgil, whatever they're called, they don't necessarily travel back and forth through galaxies all the time frequently. Maybe it's, they only do it every 30 years or 20 years or 50 years. And so that might explain the reason why Ezra hasn't been able to get back to the Star Wars galaxy, because the migration pattern it isn't time for the purrgil to go and migrate to our known galaxy of Star Wars, right? And so my kind of theory is that, they end up back in this far galaxy, this other galaxy, with AHSOKA, with JACEN and Ezra. And I think my ending of this, I just thought of this earlier today, was the season finale of AHSOKA is going to end up with, I guess more or less the movie rather is going to end up with Thrawn being destroyed. He has to be killed. I think maybe he probably sets up a good chunk of the First Order, maybe. I don't know. But I guess it's already actually happening at this point as well, so who knows. But let's just say Thrawn meets his demise in the movie, but as that happens, somehow Thrawn, sends them back to the galaxy to be banished the way that he was banished, kind of like an eye for an eye type of thing. And he ends up sending back Ezra and and JACEN, and that's how AHSOKA, and that's how you would explain them not being part of the sequel trilogy. So that way, now you can have them come back from another purrgil migration period or what have you, or they find some technological way to come back, and now it's post-sequel trilogy, and you have an older AHSOKA and Ezra and JACEN with Rey and Finn, and I don't know. That's just a wild theory.
I don't hate it.
Some sort of time dilation thing going on.
Yeah, you could.
When they traveling back to the Star Wars galaxy, they end up going like really far into the future. Who knows?
Maybe.
I had read somewhere a theory about Ezra being Marrok, because the people are like, well, why why they're looking for Thrawn, but like they were saying that perhaps Ezra couldn't. They say only Jedi can go through the time between
world between worlds. World between worlds.
World between worlds. It's like one of the main thing of my KOTOR movie I'm doing. Why am I like? The world between worlds, you can not only travel through time, but of space, right? Mm-hmm. And so the theory that I saw was like that Thrawn and him, because they do actually have a lot in common, if you read between the lines and you see about their characterizations throughout the shows and stuff like that in the novels, that he does somehow get Ezra to be on his side. And he says, Ezra, come use the world between worlds, go back to your hometown or whatever, and, then come back, but you need to bring a fleet with me. Like, you're going to have to protect Morgan, find Morgan, and then she's going to make sure that you get back to me with a ship, because otherwise I can't go, right? So that would be the theory of why he was. But here's where, for me, it gets shot down, is when they're flying in their space battle with the purrgil. you would think that when Ezra, if it was Ezra as Marrok, right, that they'd be flying through the whales and stuff like that, that he would be. You'd think. I was like, oh, what if he starts summoning the whales to do shit?
Yeah.
But it's not. So I mean, honestly, I hope that Marrok ends up being no. We can talk about that later, but not to jump too far ahead. But yeah, I don't hate your idea. Like, it's a little convenient. Like, oh, we just keep missing the big wars, but I mean, it makes sense. But like the ship, because they're gonna make it over there with the ship, so they'd have to destroy the ship. So there'd be no way. It would be like Thrawn would be like, hey, I'm gonna oh, you're destroying the ship, but in order to destroy the ship, you're gonna destroy your only way home for the next 25 years. So.
Yeah.
Could be something. I don't hate it. What do you think, Brandon?
I just still can't believe that the New Republic was like, oh, well, after like, hey, a bunch of Imperial loyalists and an Inquisitor stole a super Star Destroyer hyperdrive. Shouldn't we be worried about that? Nah. Like, all right.
It was wild because one of the senators was like, well, yeah, there's still Imperials out there, but they're all scattered. Don't worry about it. They don't have a central command. I'm like, wouldn't you want to like get rid of every last little bit of like those starships or troops out there or people loyal? I mean, like, yeah, they might swear an oath of loyalty, but like that doesn't mean jack squat at the end of the day when they're still doing this stuff in the shipyards of Corellia, right? And she's like, whatever. Don't just stay home, Hera. Don't worry about it. And it's such and there is this. I kind of get like, we don't want to get another war. And it's like, and Hera's like, we don't have a choice. And the other senator's like, yeah, we do. We can just stick our heads in the sand. What are you talking about? And it's frustrating, and where you share Hera's frustration, absolutely. And it really sets up and kind of gives explanation to why the Resistance has to be a thing, how the First Order rises to power. So it's really laying those seeds of how the sequel trilogy came, like all of that setup came to be. So.
And I think
Brandon, go off. Let me hear your thoughts on the government.
Listen, and I think Hera's right. Okay, like I think most of these New Republic senators, they're just a bunch of rich people, and their lives were no different under the Empire, the Old Republic, the New Republic. It doesn't matter to them. They're like, I don't care. If Thrawn comes back, if Big Papa Palps comes back, my life's gonna be the same, dog. Okay.
Right.
And my theory for what happens to Hera is that it's her first day being sworn in as a new senator on Hosnian Prime.
No, Brandon.
All of a sudden, there's a bright light in the sky. What's that? Oh my God, no. Yeah. She's like, I'm going to change the system from the inside.
You see, after...
and Jason's with her, too, and Jason's like, hey, I just became a Jedi. Like,
no.
Let's hug. Like, I became a master.
Oh, my gosh. I was going to say, Perrin was probably giving a handshake to Hamada Ziono after that meeting. He was like, yo, buddy, let's go party.
Go gamble, bro.
Yeah.
Actually, Jason would be like, hey, Mom, I have the map to Luke Skywalker. He texted me. Like, here it is.
Right. Could have been so easy.
Brutal.
All right, let's move on to the action part of this episode, which is really the tail end of this episode, no pun intended with the purrgil. Shin and Marrok, they're in these grievous-looking type of ships that we saw in like Revenge of the Sith. I thought was pretty cool. Everyone's been pointing out the kind of the World War II homages and similarities, and the way they sounded, and the way the lasers, their laser bolts, laser blasts, whatever, sounded. I mean, this whole sequence was phenomenal. I was loving every bit of it. It felt like old school original trilogy Star Wars, with the ship getting damaged and having to repair a ship during a space battle, a la Millennium Falcon and Han Solo and Chewie. It gave me those vibes. And Sabine and Hu Yang going back and forth is like Han and 3PO, man. Yeah, Kevin, what'd you think?
When T3's trying to recover the Ebon Hawk at the end of episode 2, Veil of the Dark Side.
Yeah, right? Talk about it.
They have even homages musically to the...
totally. I think the asteroid field a little bit. Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. They don't quite do that. They have the beginning,
the
drum procession, right? And I got one. Always missing is I missed the little target.
Right.
But yeah, you gotta love any space battle where there are 3 different things going on, and then and before we get to when they get, and I'm sure Brandon will have thoughts on it too, but I absolutely loved when and at first I didn't. So I think we could all collectively say that when she pops up in space
Mm-hmm.
like my first thought was, oh god, and not because I wanted to be negative about it, because like I actually don't like. I'm actually one of the few that likes The Last Jedi, and now everybody can eviscerate me in the comments, but I like The Last Jedi.
Sure.
I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the they call it the Mary Poppins moment.
Sure.
In fact, when we were watching it, I was like, that I thought they were going to kill her right there. Like, that would be the way to do it. Like, this would be freaking powerful and ballsy. But they didn't. It's fine. But and so when Ahsoka shows up on the ship, I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be what everybody argues about for the next 4 years, is Ahsoka hopping around and fighting. But it was freaking Clone Wars, like live action. Like they did shit like that in the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
and
you know what episode?
Filoni flex, copyright Frank
right. Yeah.
Term. It's a Filoni flex, but they did it well, and I thought it was great. And then at the end, when she's just floating, and she's like, "Are you?" Anytime now, to Sabine. I thought that was great.
Yeah,
too.
and then I thought Leia had no problem flying back to the ship on her own.
Well, so first of all, this whole sequence was like Clone Wars and OT, just dripping with those references or similarities rather. But in Clone Wars, in season 2, episode 2, titled "Cargo of Doom," there's actually a sequence where Anakin and Ahsoka are out in space traversing like the hull of a ship to get over to Cad Bane because he's got a holocron or whatever. And so like this has actually happened before. Ahsoka has actually done this before. So it's a really cool nod to Clone War fans going way back to season 2.
Thankfully, fans are liking it too. Like, I don't think people are crapping on it. So at first, I was like, "Oh man, this is going to be." Some people aren't going to like this.
But I mean,
especially people that aren't familiar with the Clone Wars.
As soon as you ignite a lightsaber, though, it's just like, dude, this is so freaking cool. You're on the hull of your ship with your lightsabers and you're deflecting laser bolt. Like, come on, man. Like, how is that not fun? That is so fun.
Yeah. Rey and Rise of Skywalker, but in space instead of like in the desert.
Right. Well, how she jumped over. Yeah. It was very, very cool. So Huyang is scanning the eye of Sion as all this is happening, and I thought he was great in this episode because. Not just the beginning part where he's kind of like, yeah, I told her she sucked,
I'll do it again.
And I'll do it again, right? But, he's like, hey, he was really, like, he has so much personality in this space battle where he's like, I need you to get a little bit closer. Come on, guys, this is, intolerable. And, kind of a little 3PO-ish, a little bit, kind of the annoyance level, if you will, at least for Sabine, and which I got a kick out of. But, he scans the Eye of Sion, he kind of gives a lowdown on what this thing can do, and it's pretty much what we thought it was going to do. It's a hyperspace ring and go great distances, travel great speeds. And I also, I want to point out Shin's dialogue with Elsbeth, where it's kind of like snarky, is like, hey, you almost got him. We'll take it over from here. I mean, it just reiterates their guns for hire. Like, I'm not really loyal to you, but as long as the checks are clearing, I'll do your bidding,
That's not going to end well for Shin, by the way.
I don't know.
Here's my hot take.
Okay.
I said it earlier today, and I believe it. I want to get it on record, right? I think when you start planting the seeds that these two girls don't get along, I think we're going to see Morgan in full Final Fantasy mega boss,
against Ahsoka?
Dathomir witch style. She's going to eventually punish Shin for insubordination or something. At one point, she's going to teach Shin, like, let me tell you who your elder is, and it's me. And she's going to whip out all the green magic and, like, string Shin up. And then Baylan is going to be like, F no, man. You're going to leave my apprentice alone. She's going to straight up murder Baylan. And then Shin will be somehow escape. And Shin will be redeemed, or not quite redeemed, but just scurry off on her own. And we may not see her again, or she may join with our heroes. But that's what I think is going to happen. I think that the trio is destined to fail. I don't think that Ahsoka's going to kill off Baylan. I don't think Ahsoka or Sabine is going to kill off Shin. I think it's going to be definitely the bad guys turning on each other, especially if Thrawn gets involved and Thrawn has his own people and his own, like, he's just going to be like, do away with this. We don't need these mercenaries anymore. And Baylan's like, it's all about power, right? Yeah. Like, this is going to be power. He thinks he's going to be granted all this power, and Thrawn might be like, okay, you were a means to an end. Thank you. Peace out. Like, best of luck on your future endeavors. And then Shin might mouth off, and then Morgan's like, are you freaking kidding me? Let me Final Fantasy boss you, and then she's strung up, and then Baylan goes to save her, and then I know it's geeky fantasy booking, but I just had a feeling when they were like, if they're hinting that these two are making little digs back and forth, it might just be as friendly as like friendly competition, and I'm totally way off base, but
maybe
we'll see.
I know
on that trio.
A lot of people seem to think, or at least I've been reading out there, that Baylan might bite it, but Shin will turn because there's still time left for her, because Baylan has been going down this dark path, and while he's not completely dark side, the more and more you tap into that stuff, the more and more it consumes you, right? So whereas Shin hasn't necessarily been that long using dark side tendencies, where he might go to Shin and be like, there's still time for you, but for me, this is it, it's over, maybe that could be a thing, and maybe Shin and Morgan Elsbeth, or Baylan versus Elsbeth. I do think though that Ahsoka and Elsbeth have to come to blows. Once they
do in the trailer, but maybe
Oh, that's right, in the trailer, but maybe a second time after that, kind of like squash it, unless Morgan Elsbeth meets her demise in that one and only meeting we've seen so far in the trailers. I don't know.
What do you think, Brandon? You like my theory, bro?
I thought, I don't know. Why didn't she use any of that magic in The Mandalorian?
Hiding her identity, I guess?
I don't know.
Hiding it, yeah.
Maybe. But I was going to say that I thought it was a nice Empire Strikes Back homage when Morgan thinks that she blew up the ship, and it was just off her radar because it was like right
off
in the
the
middle
scope.
of the ring.
Yeah.
She couldn't see him.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Because the Millennium Falcon goes, the ship no longer appears on all scopes.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
Thought that
Gotcha.
was cool.
Cool.
What did you guys think of hearing Galen? Sorry.
Well,
might as well get to that. Marrok speak.
Yeah, he said like 10 words, I think. So I tweeted out a funny Princess Bride thing because he says "as you wish" to Shin. I was like, oh, he loves her.
Who doesn't?
Are we slated to talk about Marrok theories on this show? I didn't read the run sheet.
Well,
the one theory I saw was, how they have all the helmets in the beginning?
Yeah.
And it's red helmets, bad guy, blue helmets, good guy. Marrok's helmet was blue. Well, why would it be blue?
Well, maybe that's just the way. I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe. I don't know. We can get into...
I will say this. This is a quote from Sam Witwer. I don't have a quote exactly. It was right before we went on air. I saw a TikTok of Sam Witwer talking about how they were saying that back in the day of the Rebels, Filoni had a thought about making one of the Inquisitors Starkiller, and with the prerequisite being he had to make sure that this one had a personal relationship with Vader. So if that's the prerequisite when they were doing Rebels, and it just ended up falling through or whatever, that leads me to believe that Marrok wouldn't be Galen, because I don't think that this character necessarily would have a relationship with Vader. I mean, Vader's already dead now at this point, but I guess we don't know how old the person is under the mask, but it seems like the prerequisite of it needing to have a relationship with Vader wouldn't be there. So I am going to have to think now on the side that Marrok's just going to be someone we don't know. The problem is when you hide it, you're hiding you're making such a big deal about who it is, right? By not revealing it. So it's got to be someone big like Ezra that ties into the story, or Starkiller for shock value, or why wouldn't you necessarily? I guess.
I don't really put a whole lot of stock into these Marrok theories, because I just think he's going to be just another Inquisitor that survived this long. But if he was going to be anybody, it's definitely not going to be Ezra. But if he was going to be anybody, it would probably be a version of Galen Marrok. And, when Ahsoka...
Even the name, Galen Marrok.
I know. Even when, Ahsoka and Marrok, they duel on Corellia, but now we know that they're going to have another duel thanks to the trailers. But it's just like, if this Inquisitor was, the one Inquisitor... Because I think I saw the same TikTok video you did, Kev. If this Inquisitor is the one Inquisitor that Vader secretly trained behind the Emperor's back, and the Emperor doesn't know about him. If this is the one that Vader trained secretly, and now Vader's apprentice is facing off against Anakin's apprentice,
they'd make a bigger deal.
They would make a bigger deal out of that, right? And I would be all for it. Concept. I would be all for that type of thing, but I don't think that's how it's being set up, because otherwise the show would probably pay a little more attention to Marrok. His first appearance in the show wouldn't just be like wandering around in the background of that one scene on Arcana. Like when they first show up, he just shows up in the background, like no mention of him.
I love your thought though, man. Like, I mean, it's too late, and you'd have unless they open, episode 4 with a flashback of fucking James Earl Jones Vader training this masked man, but the masked character would have to have been way bigger. In fact, it would be Baylan and this masked person and not Shin, right? Like, yeah. I mean, it's a great concept of Anakin's apprentice versus Vader's apprentice, and maybe we get that in later media down the line.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I hope that Marrok's no one at this point. At this point, I hope Marrok's no one or Ezra, because I called it earlier, and I could be like, I called it. But yeah. Probably not.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, Frank. I'm like kind of like buying into the theory that like he's like the canon version of Starkiller, like not anywhere near what we got in the video games, but like he is the Inquisitor that was the closest to Vader and was trained like the most one-on-one, and so like that's like why he's the last Inquisitor to survive. And like like I mentioned on the show before, like we've seen like AHSOKA can battle Inquisitors. Like literally that episode of Tales of the Jedi, she like literally kills that one Inquisitor without ever igniting her lightsaber. Like,
man, she messed him up like, quick.
Like Inquisitors are like a non-issue for AHSOKA. So like that leads me to believe that like this maybe the reason why this one Inquisitor gives her a hard time is because he is trained by Vader.
You just wish there's that one little piece, like right after they fight, where like so you have a close shot of Ahsoka, like kind of figuring out like why is that that fighting stance so familiar, right?
Yeah, and
or like back on the ship, self-reminating, like that was like fighting meat. You know what I mean?
The idea,
because then like
sorry, but let's just say the idea thematically of Anakin's apprentice fighting Vader's apprentice, I think works really well.
Yeah, and it's just can you imagine if Marrok just drops the line is like, yeah, Vader trained me, and then like Ahsoka knowing that Anakin became Vader, like how much that would mess with her. Like, I don't think
Vader
it's going there.
Me.
Yeah,
Vader trained me, and Vader said that I was better than you anyway. Right. That I might not make it as Obi Wan's apprentice, but I'd make it as hers. He said I could have made it as Obi Wan's apprentice too.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
That's a Clone Wars quote from the movie. You'd have to really.
I would not be surprised if that mask comes off and it's Sam Witwer underneath, though. Even if it's like not.
Well, they had another actor playing him. I'm actually going to read this. Thank you for the segue here. I found this on Screen Rant. This is the Marrok drama. I wrote Marrok drama here. Much like the 2-episode premiere, Ahsoka Episode 3's credits list Paul Darnell as playing Marrok. There's a key difference. In Episode 2, Darnell is listed as doing only the stunts for Marrok. In Episode 3, Darnell is listed as featuring as Marrok Darnell, appearing higher up in the credits alongside the other guest stars, which suggests he was not only doing the stunts, but voicing him too. Marrok's role is not greatly expanded upon in Episode 3. The biggest difference is that he talks. So there's reasonable assumption that Darnell was pulling double duty. So if that's the case, it could debunk some of those theories surrounding Marrok. The idea of him being Starkiller has gained greater attention thanks to Sam Witwer also appearing in the credits. But Sam Witwer's name was appearing in the credits next to Matthew Wood and like
David Collins.
Like, he's hanging out there all the time.
For the
he's
additional voices,
from Filoni, like, hey, come by and voice Stormtrooper number 3 for me real quick. I mean, in KOTOR we do that. I mean, I don't do it for any of you guys because I don't want you in my movies. But
that's
I'll hit up anybody and be like, hey, I'll just send them like a page of script and they'll shoot it in their VO. So.
Hey, Darth Vader was played by David Prowse, voiced by James Earl Jones, and when the mask came off, he was Sebastian Shaw.
I mean, that's true. That's true.
He was
that's a good
Sebastian
point.
Shaw, the leader of the Hellfire Club in X-Men.
The same one.
First class.
Same.
Before we wrap up, I want to get into our Discord Q&A, and we have a few in the chamber this week. And Prodigal Knight, we'll start with Prodigal Knight. You have something, Kev?
Don't forget, scroll up. I think we missed a question.
I was going to get to Janine's...
Janine, birthday girl. Happy birthday, Janine. We love you.
It's true. Happy birthday. I was going to get to Janine's at the end.
Get to Janine's at the end. Got it.
Yeah. Prodigal Knight 777. They're very good, Brandon. we're gonna get a copyright strike just for that incredible impersonation rendition.
Wait, before we get to the Q&A, I had
Sure.
one question. I'm curious what you guys thought.
Yeah.
I brought it up to my Jedi Way compatriots. Where do you think Luke factors in? Because, like, again, it's just this concept. I mean, I believe that Luke's going to be in the Filoni movie. But, like, Luke would not stand idly by, like, he's dealing with the building of the Jedi Temple, I get it, so he's busy with all of that. But he has those droids doing the automatic work for him. Is there a point where they would be like, Luke, dude, like, we kind of need your help? Especially if in the Filoni movie they're talking about it's an Avengers-level event that affects the galaxy, right? It's the Star Wars Avengers of the Filoni and Favreau-verse. Where do you think Luke ties into all this? Do you think we see him at all in this series, or only hear about him, or at the very end he's going to come and be like, all right, we're going to handle this, Thanos, this Thrawn, right? Like, what do you guys think? How do you think Luke factors in, or do you think it would be disappointing if you didn't see any of him in this or in the Filoni movie?
I don't know. I feel like he's just as complacent as the New Republic at this point. We're talking about a man who was looking for Exegol, the ancient like Sith homeworld, and he got like super close. Like he made it to Pisana, and then he just kind of looked around and went, "Oh well," and went back home. Like, bruh, like, come on. He knew something was up, and he like had a vibe that the Emperor was like there, and he's just like, ah. I don't know.
I'm curious. I don't know if I think this might be in the book somewhere. I don't know. I wonder how the New Republic views Jedi/Force wielders in this state of the galaxy, because they were part of like the demise of the Republic to begin with, and kind of got them into this mess, if you will. So I'm curious on that, and how Luke what his relationship to the New Republic would be, because we know through Bloodline that once the information came out that Leia was the daughter of Vader, that wasn't good, and she's.
Well, I mean, if you're a citizen too, like, oh, they're building another Jedi temple full of people that could turn bad because they freaking are trying to get laid. Like, oh no, dude, like, absolutely not. Like, no more Jedi, because somebody's gonna turn bad and then freaking blow up planets. Like, I had an uncle on Alderaan. No way, dude. Please.
So
no more Jedi. They're bad for the galaxy. Like, you would think that there probably would be a negative backlash. Like,
maybe. And I'm not sure if that's somewhere else in the books or not.
Not lately.
Yeah, I don't know if that's somewhere else explained more in the books or not, because I haven't really read that far into that. And I don't think there's really that much information in that point of the timeline between or just before the sequel trilogy, rather. I don't think there's that much out there, maybe. But I also wonder if Luke is just going to acquiesce to what the New Republic is doing, because he just wants to be a team player or whatnot. So, but I do think that I do agree with you, Kevin. I think Luke's got to show up in the movie. He has to have some sort of presence in the movie. He has to have something to do with that, because it'd be really odd to sideline arguably, the strongest Jedi at this point in the galaxy, to have him sidelined and Ahsoka not tap him on the shoulder, be like, "Hey, man, there's this blue dude." Like, Sabine is like not even that good with the Force. Yeah. I need your help.
Unless Thrawn could somehow, if they borrow from the novels and the Isilamari or whatever, the Anti-Jedi, if he could somehow, Thrawn is such a military genius, right? He's one of the best. Revan was pretty good too, by the way, just so you know. But if Thrawn could incapacitate and take out the two most strongest pieces on the chessboard, right? He can get rid of Ahsoka and Luke by somehow with the Isilamari, or like get them out of the equation where now Sabine is like the only one.
Damn.
Or maybe Ezra or whatever, but like where like you take the two most powerful people out of it, and then you're left with the rest of the Filoniverse heroes. Like, what are we gonna do? We got to do this on our own now. Like, we don't have our two best, strongest people, and that might be how you can limit Luke in the Filoni movie, because you don't really want it to be about Luke. You want it to be about these Filoniverse characters coming together. You want it to be more about, Din and all of that. So
it would just be too hard on a technological level, I feel, to really integrate Luke into the story and have it feel believable, because I don't know that the technology is there at all for this type of
Unless
for that
they
type
recast
of thing. Unless
for
they
the
do
movies.
recast. Like if you do that, then honestly I'd be for it, just to see Luke in this time period and have, because it would mean justice for his story and justice for the character, you know, instead of being like, we can't do it because continuity wise the faces don't match up, you know, and it's like, are we really concerned more about what the character looks like? Does the character have to always look like Mark Hamill in order to tell a Luke Skywalker story? Or are you people going to be open to recasting so we can tell more Luke Skywalker stories on a more believable level and do the character justice? I think the fandom's going to have to come to terms with that. If that isn't case where this goes, I don't know. I would be
Here's the
for
problem.
it. I would be for
the
it.
Han Solo movie didn't do well.
Yeah.
Because they were idiots and didn't release it in December like they should have. And so then they got so scared about recast. And then the Luke, granted, it was great. Everybody freaked out on The Mandalorian for it. And then the episode of Book of Boba Fett. I still think there's a slight uncanny valley for me. That's just me. But, like,
yeah.
I think people were like, oh, it's good enough now. Like, so, but, like, what are you going to do then? Like, you could never do I mean, I know people are wanting to move on from this era anyway. And I'm actually one of them. Like, I can't wait to move beyond it. But you are now basically saying, you're establishing, like, we can never do a recast because you just had, he looks exactly like Mark Hamill 2 weeks ago, and now he looks like Sebastian Stan or whatever, right? Like,
right.
Even
the guy that got
technology is getting good, but like you're just preventing. I just think that different actors can encompass different roles, and it's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think even the guy, I don't know the actor's name, who's playing Luke, like the body. Even his face looks
a lot like him.
He does look a lot like him, and I would buy it. Like
maybe just like a couple prosthetics to like,
right? Maybe
like set, like really like hit it home, and I don't know, like maybe like even like some like crazy stuff, like if his voice isn't quite right, like do a blend of like the guy's actual voice, like with like a touch of like the AI Mark Hamill voice, like on top, layered on top of it, like weird stuff, but like, you know, tastefully.
Maybe it works. Maybe I don't know, but that's, I don't know. We'll have to wait. That's going to be due to the strikes. That's going to be like another 8 years down the road. So maybe the technology by then will be pretty good. Who knows? All right.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Let's get into these Discord, and then we have a couple off of YouTube we'll read. But Prodigal Knight 777. He says here, glad to see Smets back in the fray. Love the new Convergence clip too. Any update on progress with that? And for the rest of the crew, do you so far like Ahsoka more or less than Kenobi? So, Kev, you want to talk about the Convergence, or what can you say on that?
He's in our forum.
He's in there. He's
just trying. He knows every time I talk about it, I say one too many things. I will say that my compatriot, Darth Varkor, who it's his universe meeting mine, it's his birthday today. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
He is releasing a clip on his channel tomorrow.
There you go.
So you will get another 2-minute clip or minute and a half clip. I don't know how long it is, to be honest. I'm making it up, but somewhere around the same length as the last clip that we did. So if you want to see a little more tidbit from the movie, you will be able to see a clip tomorrow. And other than that, I'm keeping my lips sealed because I know what you're up to. I don't know whether it was on this show or on the other. I know I said one too many things. I am like Tom Holland on the red carpet.
Yeah,
I am not to be trusted.
No, I think you even acknowledged it and you're like, oh, whatever. Anyways, but okay, so Kevin, Ahsoka, Kenobi, which one are you going to pop in?
It's still Kenobi. Kenobi, it was right around the time we were getting ready for Hawaii trip. We were going to Hawaii. We were going to Oahu with the family, and we had like the flight was like the next day. So like the first episode premiered, and we got sushi at the place in Marina Del Rey, and I had a couple beers, and like I just remember standing up, freaking out when the clone trooper was like asking for money, and just fist pumping when like he finally gets on that ship, and you see the lightsaber and stuff, and just also, I mean, Phil, it was such the promise of what this show will be, you know, especially that premiere. Yeah. So 3 episodes in, and then about 3 episodes in is right when, like, you know, finally at the end, I think it was the end of episode 2 where Anakin's eyes open up and he says, you know, I'm so messed up now because our Kenobi cut, we did it differently. But, so far, I think it's just because of my love for the characters right now. And I know it's not necessarily the better show. It's not necessarily the better show in execution. But I still, it's going to take a lot to topple Kenobi because a lot of the reasons why people did not like that show, it didn't bother me because of the stuff that I did love about that show kind of protected it from it. But who knows? I have a feeling episode 5 of this, so we have Peter Ramsey next week, 42 minutes. But episode 5 is that Dave Filoni episode. And I feel like that's going to be where we heard that Hayden Christensen audio in one of the trailers. Do we see it? Do we see Hayden de-aged with the Clone Wars armor? Like, who knows? And I'm not saying that I need that in order to have Ahsoka pass up Kenobi. I don't believe it will be able to. I really love Ahsoka as a character, and I do have this up higher than a couple of the other shows, I think. Definitely higher than Book of Boba Fett. I'd have to think about Mandalorian, because I do love Jedi lore more than just the Mandalorian stuff. But Kenobi, long answer to a quick question. Sorry. Right now, Kenobi's still ranked up. It's going to take a lot just because of my absolute love for the characters. And I like our Kenobi cut of the movie. It's actually really good with the music. So. Yeah. What do you got, you guys?
I'll say I'm going to put Ahsoka above Kenobi. I love Obi Wan Kenobi, but they are two completely different types of shows when you really look at it. Ahsoka has a little bit more of a bigger scale than Kenobi, because Kenobi is more, it's a story about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and yeah, Ahsoka is about Ahsoka, but it's tying in the New Republic, it's tying in these threats with Thrawn, and Obi-Wan's more a personal story where it's geared more towards him and Vader, and Obi-Wan wrestling with, his trauma. And there is some of that stuff with Ahsoka, obviously, but bringing in Rebels characters, like Sabine and Hera, I think widens that scope more. And you can just do a lot more with this type of story, which is something I like a lot about this show, which, again, we talk about all the time. It has a lot of original trilogy vibes, which, is the trilogy I grew up on. And so I appreciate it for that. But I would put Ahsoka over Kenobi, if only because I like this type of story from Star Wars, as opposed to what we got with Kenobi, which I still like that show for what it does, or what it at least tried to do, or at least what it tried to do, because, the execution and, the promise was so, if they delivered on Kenobi, I'd probably be way more torn on this question, but that's not what happened. Brandon?
I love them both. I'll wait, reserve my final judgments for when Ahsoka finishes.
Oh my gosh, come on. Answer the man's question.
No! Come on, man.
But
gun to your head right now. You got to pick one. It doesn't mean it's the end. You got to.
All right, compare the first 3 Kenobi to the first 3 Ahsoka.
There you go. There.
I would say Ahsoka has a bit more of a hook, I think, in terms of new stuff. Even though I loved revisiting Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and getting the Inquisitor stuff from Obi-Wan's perspective, and of course the Leia reveal I thought was great. I was not expecting her to be a big character in the show at all. But maybe I'll give the slight edge to it in the Ahsoka for now.
Okay.
But
in the Kenobi movie, the first time you see Leia is when she kicks Obi-Wan in the cell. That's the first time you see it. You don't see the chase in the woods, any of that Alderaan stuff.
All right.
But I did want to point out because we were talking about different actors playing Luke, and I think you could have Luke in timeline order be played by Mark Hamill, somebody else, and then Mark Hamill again, because we see a very similar thing with Mon Mothma, as in this episode, being played by Genevieve O'Reilly.
And they didn't even change her hair. Yeah. She should have had the Caroline Blackestein mop.
So
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So Genevieve O'Reilly, Caroline Blackestein.
Instead of Andor, they're let me just shoot this real quick.
Yeah, so it's she got young again. Wow, look at that, amazing.
Yeah, right.
But you forgive it because we've already seen so much of her. We're already connected to her version of the character, so we
forgive because in Return of the Jedi, she's on screen for what? 5 minutes, So I guess that's a factor. I don't know. Anyways, we got our next question comes from Kevin Smets. Oh my gosh. He says, Hi, gang.
Future
Kevin
friend of the
Smets
show.
here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Please read this in its entirety, Frank, in case I forget to mention on the show
shit.
what do we think the ultimate fate of JACEN Syndulla is, since we don't see him in the sequel trilogy. Where is he? Where is he? Answer me! Damn you, Soylent Green's people, you damn dirty apes! The humanity! No!
There it is.
There it is.
From paper, from God's ears. What is it? From God's mouth to your ears? Or
There you go.
whatever.
Yeah.
From paper to screen. Cut, print. That's a wrap. Thank you, Frank.
That was a
I think
cold
we already
read.
covered it.
That was a cold read. I didn't read the whole thing.
Really?
Before.
You didn't even.
Seriously. Wow.
Fantastic.
As I was reading, I'm like, oh my god, I'm not really stumbling on this.
Toilet
I think maybe
is from a.
my final theory is he's pod racing on Malastare very fast. He's ride
What you say,
racing
Kev?
with tech.
Yeah, I was trying to figure
Tech
out
lives
all the other
animation.
movies where they scream like "damn dirty apes," "Soylent Green is people," then "no" is my Anakin or Vader. I don't know. I was just having fun.
Yeah.
Trying to liven up the Q&A a little bit.
Yeah. You hear that? You hear that Discord Q&A? He's trying to liven it up,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, what's up with
You
the
guys
Q&A?
liven it up.
Where the hell are you guys?
Reefton put a question in there. Who is Marrok other than Ezra, Galen Marrok, Snoke, Luke, or any other clone of someone? We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier and touched on this. I mean, if he's... I think he's probably just going to be an Inquisitor that lasted this long. I don't know if it'd be some sort of iteration of Galen Marrok, who was trained by Vader. I doubt it, but I really do think he's just going to be just another Inquisitor.
You know who I think it is?
Who?
Sean Sullivan.
John Sullivan?
Haven't seen him on this show
You
since
know-
it's been Marrok, dude. He's too busy out there in a galaxy far, far away.
Oh my gosh, maybe it is him. Brandon, any final
Sean
words?
Sullivan is Marrok. Hashtag Sean Sullivan is
Yeah.
Marrok.
Any final words on this theory, Brandon?
Marrok is the Jedi played by Benny Safdie and Obi Wan. He survived. He wants
Oh
his
my
revenge.
That's really good. I haven't heard of that one. You should throw that out in the
Oh,
ether. They'd go wild for that one. JX editor. He's just responding to Reefton's question. Isn't that the monkey prophet from Elder Scrolls? Okay, Erdon. He asks, do you think Marrok will die in the show?
Probably.
I do think so. I think he will. I think that's why he's around. Honestly, because I think Baylan and Shin, Dave wrote those characters. He probably didn't want to kill them off, and maybe he doesn't. But he's like, I for sure can kill off Marrok. I need someone to die in a lightsaber fight. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, I think you won me over on the someone needs to die in the lightsaber fight. Because at first I was like, nah, not if they have bigger plans for him. Unless Marrok is one of the two bigger, theories. But yeah,
True, yeah.
If he's got to be someone to die, because I think, like I said, I don't know if Baylan or Shin's going to die at anyone's hands. Because they're technically not like Sith. Like, they're mercenaries, and Baylan's already shown a little bit of care about Ahsoka and, hunt them down, not kill them, right? So,
Right.
Marrok
Yeah.
is a Luke clone sent from Mexico to help Thrawn come back to power.
Wow, you heard it
Heard it
here
here
first,
first.
folks. Right on Scoundrels Inc.
Please make that a reel that goes viral so that everybody...
I'm going to try my best.
To show here that
comments.
comic strip that has his hand in the jar on Exegol, and he's like, I can use this to make anything.
And have a red circle with a big arrow, right?
Yep.
And the thumbnail. It's all about the thumbnail, Frank. Get
All
on
about
it.
the thumbnail. All right.
Thumb it up.
We have a couple more here. Let me see if I can... Where did it go?
Once those droids take control of the surface, they will take control of you.
Okay, so...
Way to be ready, Frank.
Okay,
Come on, you're
two
the
questions.
leader
We
of
got
this
two
ship.
questions here from our good friend Loitus Maximus. And he goes, first question is Ahsoka related. Do you think it's inevitable that Ahsoka will die at the end of this Mandoverse movie? Do you even think it could be possible that she'll recognize her termination to be a necessity for the betterment of the galaxy? By that time, she'll likely be the last remnant of a Jedi regime that failed in its duty to keep peace and order and protect the innocent. She'll also likely be recognized as a product of a bygone era best forgotten in galactic history, as well as recognizing herself that the Jedi need to forge their own new path and that she is too tainted by her own past and experience to truly be conducive in achieving that outcome.
I think she's going to die. I think Dave brought her into this world, and he's going to take her out.
Jeez,
We hear her voice speak to Rey at the end of Rise of Skywalker, so we know she's toast. So
Maybe she's hiding behind one of the columns, and she's like,
she's on exegol.
yeah.
like this.
Force,
Yeah.
You're all the Jedi. Yeah. Here's my theory on Ahsoka. Ahsoka is going to die in a sense, but I think she's going to become like, you know how Morai keeps following her around? I feel like there's going to be some spiritual weird transference of the Force with her into like like the gods of Mortis. I think she's going to evolve into that sort of thing where she will be dead from the physical world, but still actually live on in the spiritual world.
Effects of all Filoni effects.
But would you? But are you saying that's a far-fetched idea, Kevin?
It's not far-fetched.
Thank you.
It's a big Filoni flex. I think she's gonna die. I think, like Brandon said, I think it's his baby, and I think he's finally going to get to achieve his dream of directing a live-action Star Wars movie, and I wish him nothing but the best. And he is going to give Ahsoka that Obi Wan Kenobi from A New Hope epic sacrificial treatment.
Right.
And
once that happens, she transfers into one of the gods of Mortis.
That could be fine, but not like, I'm just going to not die.
Oh, not like that. No. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that happening. That's a great question. I definitely think that, and I would want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that because, she could die. I don't know how old her race lives, her alien species lives.
Long
time. So I think it would be fitting for her to come to an end and die heroically, and then we would literally have like her. We've seen her birth. We'd see everything from Tales of the Jedi and like her whole life. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Brandon,
good question, my friend.
How do you? What's your take on Ahsoka's death? Will it happen, or will she just live forever?
I think it's gonna happen. Yeah, she's toast. Stick a fork in her. She's done.
Okay. All right. Very cold-blooded there. Second question. This one, again, from Loitus Maximus. This one is just for you, Kevin, though. And he's always wanted to ask this.
Yeah. Oh, the answer is I don't know why I hang out with these guys. They make good conversation, and they pay for their half of their wings. So.
He goes, he's sorry if this is a common question, but were you and Darth Icy? Is that how you say it? Icy? Why Icy? Icy? Always you and... Oh, I'm sorry. Always working on that whole saga together, or did you only come together at the end of his half of the saga? And either way, how did it come to be? Who approached who? And is it a similar story with you and Darth Varkor for Convergence? I always thought that Revan's first appearance in KOTOR 2, part of Logan's story, in the prison at the end of Hunger for Force, wasn't Logan's model or Kevin's voice, and that the true Logan was only introduced in the final 2 chapters. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've always been curious. Glad your cancer scare wasn't too serious, Kevin. Hope you stay well.
You're not wrong. Originally, so Darth Icy is my buddy, Brandon Twigg, who did the Kenobi cut.
Mm-hmm.
He did his own KOTOR 2 movies. I had done my KOTOR 1 movies, and everybody was like, well, when's he going to do his KOTOR 1 movies? Because they liked his movies. And people would always ask, when am I going to do my KOTOR 2 movies? But we just intersected at a time where he helped me with episode 3. And we were having a big film festival premiere date and a big movie. The 501st came out for it. I have pictures on my Facebook. Maybe I'll post it in the Discord. It was a fantastic night. But we had all hands on deck to make this deadline. I had like a third of the movie still to shoot, and I had like 3 months to do it. So Brandon helped out, and because he was good at making his own KOTOR 2 movies, and so he was so instrumental in making that episode 3, The Circle of Fate, that I consider it his movie as well. Like he knows that like he saved that movie. He went out to the premiere with me. He was on the Q&A panel with me, and so when people would ask him like, "What about your KOTOR 1 movie?" he always felt he loved my movies. He came into the community with my movies. That I think he felt like, well, these are kind of like my movies. Like, I like this. I like the Logan verse, as they call it. And for me, like, just pure out of, like, straight, not laziness, but, like, the undertaking of doing a KOTOR 2 movie, when I thought that Darth Icy's movies were so good, that's why we connected. We were like, well, dude, why don't we just connect the two? And he was just about to finish his last movie, where in his last movie, his main character, the female, Mitra, finally connects with Revan or Logan, And he could have made it. So earlier movie, he did have a different voice for the Revan. And we've canonically explained it away if that's what in his head, what he looked at in the mirror. Whatever. He'll reshoot it one day and do a special edition, I'm sure. Because at that point, he was going to do his own. But when we come together, we're like, screw it. Let's just move forward. We could do a recasting, just like the fans can get a recasting of Luke. And so we had the trailer where at the end, Mitra turns around and he says, Mitra, and he turns around. It's a great trailer. And he's like, instead of Chewie, we're home. It was the same trailer built. But at the end, instead of Chewie, we're home, he says Mitra, and it fades up. And it's Logan looking at Mitra saying, about damn time, like she rescues him. And everybody freaked out. They're like, oh my God, your worlds are connected. So a great eye. It was, for me, it was out of pure respect for Darth Icy's movies. I could never make them as good as he did. And also laziness, I didn't want to. And I think for the same thing, he didn't want to try to make his own KOTOR 1 movies when we can tell new stories. We're having way more fun telling brand new stories like Convergence. And so to answer your question about Convergence is kind of the same thing. Darth Varkor was a fan of my movies. I remember getting messages from him like in 2009 or 10. Like he's like a British kid, but he was like 14, 13. Now he's like a full professional working in London or whatever, or the UK anyway, as an editor, like
cool.
a full grown adult man now with a life and stuff. And so he made his own movies that were so good, but it was about, and he did a whole saga. Like the guy works faster than I've ever seen anyone. So he did a whole saga he did a KOTOR 2 movie series, then he did a KOTOR 1 movie series. And his KOTOR 1 movie series, he had the guy look more like the canon face of Revan, which to my defense, I never knew what Revan looked like.
Is there a canon face of Revan?
There's not. They just, well, if you play the MMO, it's like the long hair. Everybody always says, if you just imagine Keanu Reeves with long hair, like he's Revan. Like that's the fan casting. So, and the MMO had him have long hair. The novel did, which sucks because like in the game, the whole point was Revan is whoever you want it to be. You could have a female, black, Asian, it didn't matter. Like so, but they chose a long-haired guy. So he did that face. But what he did with his Revan is he had Revan do all the wrong choices and just do everything bad. I mean, the way he kills the companions that, like in my movie, I save and cherish, and they have their own fate. He literally like kills like Teenage Mission, kills Zalbar brutally, and wait till you find in this movie. Man, I always speak too much, but in Convergence, we have the It was like, why don't we? It was started as a joke. It was like, hey, why don't we do Into the KOTOR verse where your dickhead Revan meets my good guy Revan, right? Because we always joke team Revan, team Logan, team Dan, or whatever. And then this guy Greg Mitchell, who wrote our scripts for my other KOTOR project, we wrote an outline together, and then he wrote just this freaking script that is so beautiful. If you see the clip we released last week, it introduces so many powerful concepts of like, and it's hard if you're not a KOTOR fan. So the best way I can relate is imagine Anakin Skywalker at the height of his Jedi-ness having a whole buddy cop movie with evil Anakin that just committed all these atrocities. Yeah. And then there's a sequence in our movie which is bound to happen, and maybe I'm speaking too much. But I'm not going to say it in terms of how it happens in my movie, but imagine if good guy Anakin lived a different world where he was good and he stopped the Clone Wars and he stopped the Palpatine and everything, and he lived like a good Jedi Knight, and then he got sucked into the void and then is hanging out with evil Darth Vader version. And then when he's like, wait, what happened to everybody? What happened to the Jedi? And then he was forced to see like what Order 66 was. Like, what would good guy Anakin do to bad guy Anakin when he found like, so there's a lot of like reveals of like, how do these two get along? And there's a greater threat, which I won't say what it is. We're not even going to show it in the marketing. That's how excited we are about the villain. Cool. We're going to try to not show the villain at all in the marketing. So the first time anyone sees the villain is going to be on premiere night. So cool. Another long-winded answer to say for Varkor, again, it was out of a mutual respect. He was a fan of mine since he was a kid, basically. And then when it was like the apprentice surpassed the master. His movies were so good that I was like, dude, like I'd love to work with you. How would we do it? And then it came from literally a joke in Discord where I was like into the KOTOR verse, and then our wheels started turning. And the story is so deep and so powerful and so heartfelt. Like, It is not some cheesy. Originally, it was going to be cheesy. We're going to have like Lego, KOTOR, like all these universes and stuff. No, this is like, it takes itself seriously, and it's a great story. So Thanks for asking that question, my friend. Yeah, so that's it. So both times it was just because I wanted to join. I wanted to jump on all of the more talented people's coattails. That's why I work with Icy, and that's why I'm working with Barkor.
There you go.
So I want to capture their magic. So
there you go. I mean this sincerely. I'm really looking forward to watching and see what you guys come out with, because like you're selling it really well right now. I'm like, damn, I really do want to watch this.
I was privy to reading the script, and the script, there are just parts to it where you're just like, the writing is so on point, and
which is great because he probably knows your Logan very well.
Our writer is a super fan of my movies, and then he was friends with Varkor, and he helped write. Well, Greg was not only he's the writer of all of my sequels and my prequels, so he's the main writer. So, but he also helped out with Varkor during one of his last movies, so he knows the Varkorverse, as they call it, like way in depth that I wouldn't know. Even though I watched all of them once, and that's what got me on board, I was like, well, I wouldn't know simple details. But like, we're talking like little things, man. Like the clip tomorrow is an interesting clip too, where I can't even say anything.
Is it coming out? Is it coming out Thursday, or is it? So is it Friday?
It'll be released. It'll be released. So I won't release. It's a great clip, but it's basically it's a character from his movie. Seen. Never mind. I can't say anything. I'm gonna be good, even though I think this releases around the same time as it. All I'll say is each clip, like we're gonna really try to hide that main villain. So I'll tell you guys off air what it is. It's kind of cool.
Very concept, cool. Yeah. We got two more before we're out of here. Itai Nama, he says, or he asks rather, do you think it'll end up with her, Sabine, that is, being a full-blown Jedi? Or will it be more like the Jedi monks from Rogue One? What do you think, Brandon? How's Sabine going to end up?
I think somewhere in the middle. Ooh. She's going to have a lightsaber. I think she's going to be able to wield the Force to some degree. But she's not going to be like super all-powerful or anything like that.
Yeah. Tevin, what do you think?
I like the idea of like her last. Maybe she gets blinded and then always says the Force.
Then she really has to tap into the Force. At that point, she's got no choice.
I think the last scene of the show, the after credits scene, is going to be her sitting at that same table with the cup and trying to move it, and it will finally.
All right.
Oh, we're coming. The cup. We're coming back to the cup at some point. That's for sure. I agree.
Yeah. I feel like that.
She's going to be playing chess in the park, and it's going to wiggle just a little bit.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I didn't want to repeat my joke from. I said that on the Jedi Way.
Oh, did you?
Today. I'm trying not to repeat myself.
It's all right. I picked up on it. Don't worry.
All right, good.
Yeah, I think Sabine. I think it's gonna be fairly. I think she'll end up being decently capable with the Force. I think this whole notion. I think just laying the groundwork for anyone can have the Force as long as you have the discipline and the focus. Remember, your focus determines your reality. So it's. I think if she can employ that.
Why would anyone listen to that guy? He can't even live through a lightsaber.
All right. So I do think she's gonna be pretty decent with the Force, if you will. I don't think she'll be as powerful as Ezra, but I think she'll be pretty decent with the Force, and it'll be fun to watch. And yeah, I think she's gonna come back, and one day she's just gonna grab that cup and be like, "I win this time. I win this round." All right, our last question goes to the birthday girl, Janine DeBean, and she asked us a little while ago, so I had to make sure to keep tabs on it that I didn't lose it. But she says, "I'm
actually the one who kept tabs on it. Don't take credit, Janine. I'm the one who made sure.
I'm the one who told you I wanted to save this one for the end." But anyways, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon was originally pitched as a Star Wars story, but was rejected. Do you think Snyder's style would have been a good fit for the Star Wars franchise? Brandon, what do you think?
I think it's like fine as like a one-off, like kind of how we've seen with like Star Wars Visions, where it's like not canon, but directors are allowed to like put their own creative input. Like, so if it was like a non-canon, like
non-canon,
no respect, non-canon. Oh, you're allowed to do a movie, but it can't.
I only say this because of his.
The guy built.
So basically, your answer is no.
I only say this because of his.
Man of Steel is a triumph.
Like he's like, oh yeah,
True.
It's like Star Wars, but like with sex and blood and violence. And like the people who are working on the movie are like, we're so happy this didn't end up in the Star Wars.
I know.
universe.
I saw the headline.
And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I don't want it in it. Then we're good.
I think a lot of them too. Like, here's the thing: I'm glad that we're going to get new IP. I really love Snyder, and I think that
I'm a fan.
this story. I'm a huge fan. Yeah, but I really think that sometimes it's cool to get brand new IP. Like, there's that other show,
The Creator.
movie, The Creator,
Yeah,
that's coming out.
with,
Like, hopefully that's great IP. It's
Gareth
good, it's
Edwards,
good
yeah.
to get some new. It's good to get some new IPs out there, and hopefully something catches, right? Because it's really fun to to go to a movie and be excited about a new era or
Totally.
a new storytelling. You know what I mean? And that's not just a comic book movie, which you already kind of know the established lore. Like, this is going to be really fun. So I think that he's very overly stylish, and I think not overly, that's the negative term, but he's very stylish, and I think that with the slow motion shots and everything, maybe it wouldn't quite fit in, and I don't think it would ever work anyway, because the way that all these filmmakers they have these filmmakers depart from the projects because too much interference from Lucasfilm and stuff like that. I think it was destined to always be this way, but we're getting a brand new property, and if it's a good movie and it's a killer movie, then the problem is not the problem, but like, how much are we going to just be, that would have been a lightsaber there, or that would have been a Sith? Like, we're going to always be thinking that. But like in college,
it's already happening online, just so you know.
Oh yeah, I did. In college, we wrote a script taking place in the Vietnam War, and originally, and I had just come off a Civil War movie project. And my teacher, after we turned in the script, was like, "That's great, but you just did a war movie. Like, you should show your range." And we only had a month of pre-production before we were going to start shooting, and we're like, or 2 months, and we're like, "What are we going to do?" So Joey and I, my friend Joey, who's actually the Padawan collector. He was a film. He went to film school.
I know this name. Why?
Padawan collector. He does Star Wars Kenner, like, collecting.
Okay.
He has a YouTube channel and an Instagram. He's a great guy, and his videos are his energy and his energy on the videos remind me of him in college. That's how he was.
Okay.
He's a very likable guy. So, but we had to change last minute a movie about the Vietnam War and a stranded GI, and we changed it into, I think I talked about it. It was basically Avatar before Avatar, because it was in 2002. But we rewrote everything. The GIs were an organization called the Syndicate. The Viet Cong were a group of thing called the Mages, and like, we were able to like rechange everything and then make it like sci-fi, but it was still the same story structure. So that will be fun for this Snyder movie to see, like, that this is probably like the Empire or whatever,
Yeah.
So that'll be really cool. But yeah, I don't hate on Snyder. I love him.
I don't. Well, I'll just first of all, I'll just say I don't think Snyder's style would vibe with the Star Wars. I think Star Wars has a particular way of, how their stuff looks and how it feels, and I don't know that Snyder's style, jives with that, and I don't know that he would want to deviate from his style if he was going to make a Star Wars movie. However, I will say this is a little tiny caveat. If we start getting movies in this other galaxy, well, that could look a totally different way. And if Snyder wanted to do a movie in that galaxy, and it's too bad, obviously, I guess they're not going to go. I guess they're not going to go that direction. Put a rebel moon in.
You know what you're setting up, though? You're setting up this like, we have the B squad and the.
I'm not Kevin.
Yeah,
I'm not setting it up. I'm not setting that up. Disney is setting that up. Filoni is setting that up. So I'm just trying to read the tea leaves here. What they're trying to do in the future.
You want to work with Han and Luke and Anakin and Obi Wan? No, you got to.
Well,
work
they
with
are
Skeleton Crew.
They are deceased characters.
Going to be way over there.
They are deceased characters. No one to play with besides Rey and Finn and Poe, which would be great. Anyways. All that said, I do hope Rebel Moon is a success. I do hope the creator is a success, because you're right, Kevin. I want to see new IP out there, and this stuff looks cool, and I would just want to have newer stories, different stories as well. So I love Star Wars, but I would love Gareth Edwards' creator to pop off and be a big thing, because I really liked what he did with Rogue One. However much he did, whatever the case may be with Rogue One, I loved it, and his name's attached to it, so he's the director. Zack Snyder, Rebel Moon, if that takes off, awesome, because then I'll have Rebel Moon to watch, I'll have Star Wars to watch, I'll have Creator to watch, all this stuff to watch, So
right, dude. That's the spirit.
Yeah, that's that, and I think that's gonna wrap us up. Yeah.
Did Brandon have thoughts?
I already shared my thoughts.
Yeah. He said no. He said hell no. He was like, he put his fist down. He was like, nuh-uh, not in these Star Wars. Not in these stars. Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for Scoundrels, Inc., talking about AHSOKA Episode 3, Time to Fly. Scoundrels, Inc. Tune in next week. Also, by the way, I I did pick up a certain
I
point
saw
of
that.
view, Return of the Jedi. I already went through the first story. I got through the first story. There's 40 of these bad boys, right? So I'm going to try and read one once a day, and I'm posting my thoughts on the stories, brief thoughts on these in our Discord channel. So if you want to hit up our Discord channel, link in the
Can I
description.
say something?
Yeah.
I'm just so impressed that you know how to read. Like that's one thing that I'm very impressed with.
Wow.
You know how to read.
I'm so glad you're back. All right.
Baby.
Scoundrel. Scoundrel. I like the sound of that.